Wel, angyfeillion, bore da, a diolch yn fawr iawn. A diolch i Catherine am y croeso cynnes. Mae'n braf cael bod nôl yn Llandudno gyda chymaint o ffrindiau, gynghorwyr lleol, aelodau'r Senedd ac aelodau seneddol. Conference, you will all know how conventional it is in this sort of speech, at this sort of conference, to spend my time reflecting on all the good things a Labour government has achieved in Wales. And indeed, I could use up all the time I have today to do just that, because we've achieved so much together in just the last 12 months. We've helped more than 11,000 young people to find jobs in the very first year of our Young Persons Guarantee Scheme. We've passed a new law to ban single-use plastics. We've extended the most generous childcare offer anywhere in the UK. We're providing a basic income in the largest experiment anywhere in the world for our young care leavers. And we've served a remarkable 3 million more free school meals since September. Free school meals. Free school meals on that journey for every pupil in every primary school in every part of Wales. Now, none of this would have been achieved without the dedication and commitment of my Labour colleagues in the Welsh Government and the Labour Group, whose discipline, year in and year out, allows us to deliver that Labour programme. But while I could go on listing those achievements, I actually want to use the short time I have with you today to stand back for a moment, to stand back from the lists of policies and pledges, from our programme of government and its hundreds of commitments, and indeed from the many debates that we will have here over this weekend. I want instead to say something about the wider purpose of the Labour Party in Wales, about the beliefs and values that lie at the heart of this great party. When I was a very young child, staying as I so often did on my grandparents' farm, someone who we would undoubtedly have called in those days a tramp came to the back door of the farmhouse. He was hungry, he was thirsty, and my grandmother busied herself to make sure that he had food and drink. And as a child, I was a bit afraid of what I'd seen, this strange person coming to the door. And when he'd gone, I asked my grandmother why she had reacted with the kindness that she had so obviously shown. And I've remembered her answer ever since. Because what she said to me was, it was because he was a stranger. And in that answer, I later realized, was the seed of what led me to be a socialist. And it's also what lies at the heart of the enduring bargain between the Labour Party and the people of Wales. It's that basic belief that in our brief lives, we owe a duty of care, not just to ourselves, and not even just to our family and our friends, but also to strangers, to those people who we will never know and we will never meet, but whose welfare we understand is intimately bound up with our own. And that simple belief, passed to me through those practical actions I witnessed as a child, runs deep here in Wales. It's there in the selfless act of blood donation, which so many of us do every year. It's there in the groundbreaking and life-saving organ donation law we passed almost 10 years ago now, and since then copied in so many other places. And it's there in our ambition to be a nation of sanctuary, to provide that warm welcome to families forced out of their homes in Hong Kong by a repressive regime, or forced to flee Ukraine because of war, or indeed all of those who seek sanctuary from wherever and however they may come to our shores. Conference, this is not simply an act of generosity. It's rooted in our sense of a common humanity, in our labour history that has so long taught us that an injury to one is an injury to all. And it's rooted, isn't it, in the sort of Wales we in this conference hall and in this movement, the sort of Wales we want to see, a country which is confident, outward-looking, inclusive and kind. A country where our own culture is vibrant and alive, but strengthened also by embracing other cultures from around the world. A country where we know that collective solutions to common problems always make the biggest difference. A Wales where we know that we can rely on one another when we need help, that we can indeed rely on the kindness of strangers. Cymru lle allwn ni dibynnu ar ein gilydd mewn amseroedd anodd. Dibynnu ar ceredigrwydd ganddi eithriad. Nawr, dwi wedi profi ac wedi gwerthfawrogi caredigrwydd yna dros yr wythnosau diwetha. Geiriau o caredigrwydd a chydymdeimlad gan bobl o fewn ein plaid ni, ond hefyd gan bobl dwi byth wedi cwrdd â nhw. Mae hwnna wedi bod yn cryfder i mi yn bersonol. Diolch o galon i chi gyd. Conference next year, it will be 50 years since I first voted Labour in a general election. Incredibly, that's almost half of Labour's winning century here in Wales. And the older I get, the more radical I become. And you know, part of that is because in 35 years of that half-century, when people in Wales have voted for a Labour government in Westminster, we've ended up with the opposite, with the Tories in charge in London and trying to be in charge here in Wales. And over that time, those same Tories have created profound damage to the case for the United Kingdom, putting the UK at greater risk over the past 4 years than at any time in my political lifetime. Risk caused by the actions of those Tory governments. Now, this morning, I want once again to remake the compelling case which I believe is there to be made for the United Kingdom, and to spell out the urgent duty of that next Labour government to turn that case for the United Kingdom into reality. Because the case for the United Kingdom Conference is a Labour case, and it's a socialist case as well. It's the case, as you heard Keir say this morning, it is the case of solidarity, of looking out for strangers. And for me today, that case has 4 main strands. The first, a solidarity union, in which our actions together guarantees that nobody has to find themselves unable to eat and relying on a food bank. a solidarity union, where the impact of old age or illness or caring for your family does not force you to the margins of what others are able to take for granted. Being a member of the United Kingdom, a Labour United Kingdom, would mean a guarantee of security for us all. And the second strand in this case, in a solidarity union, is to use the power of a Labour government to secure again those hard-won rights which working people have fought for so long. Employment rights, consumer rights, human rights, environmental rights. Because to be a member of a Labour United Kingdom is to offer us all a guarantee that those rights don't belong to other people, but that they belong to every one of us. And a third strand in this solidarity union is a strand that tells us that the lifeline services on which we all rely belong not to profit-maximising private companies, but to the people who make those profits for them in the first place, the people who work in those companies, the people who rely on the services that they provide. There's a union where the investment available for infrastructure or public services is not bounded by your postcode or by borders, as the nationalists would have us believe, but where we know that the case is a case for pooling our resources and sharing out those rewards. A conference from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. So to be a member of this union, a Labour United Kingdom, is to guarantee that the public interest, our interest, drives the delivery of the things on which we all rely. But after 13 years of further Tory government, that union is in peril as never before. 13 years of a party that has thrived on dividing our country, hurting the most vulnerable, striking at the institutions and the values that have bound us together, our openness, our generosity, our power to be a force for good in the world. And so, as always, it falls to us, to the Labour movement and to the next Labour government to make the case for Britain. If Labour is to save the union, we know we can't do that by defending the status quo, by nervously hoarding power at the centre, as this Tory government has done time and again. Rather, it is by building a new partnership of equals, based on mutual respect, a partnership that has the confidence to redistribute power and opportunity radically to every community, every nation, in every part of our country. And we've heard today commitments given by Keir that the next Labour government will do just that. And we're hugely fortunate, aren't we, to have that recipe set out for us. It's there in Gordon Brown's report on the future of the UK. That powerful case for a new and strengthened union. Dernas unedig newydd wedi hi cryfhau, un gyda'r hyder I weld manteision llywodraeth ar y cyd, lle mae datganoli yn gyfle I alluogi bobl ac I wneud pethau yn wahanol. A union with a commitment to pursue self-government and shared government, making the best of both, where devolution is an opportunity to empower people and to do things differently, not a problem to be marginalised or to be managed. Now, conference is the fourth and final pressing issue which an incoming Labour government will have to tackle to create this solidarity union. And that is the threadbare nature of our democracy, which does so much to fuel the discontent on which nationalism and separatism thrives. Our democracy has been hollowed out by the Tories and their dreadful brand of selfish, self-enriching politics, where even a football commentator is expected to toe the Tory line or to find their job at risk. And so, it is for the next Labour government to be as bold and determined to put the United Kingdom back on its democratic feet as the Tories have been to kick that ground from under us. And that's why the next Labour government must lead the task of democratic renewal. It was a very important moment at our conference in Liverpool in September, when we voted to endorse a change in the voting system for Westminster elections. Conference, I do not believe that we can go on simply accepting a system which time and time again produces Conservative majorities on a minority of the votes cast. And to those who continue to fear a change in the electoral system, I say simply, look at what we have done here in Wales. 25 years of winning and working within a proportional electoral system. Now I hear what the critics say, that first past the post produces strong government. Well, I've lived and seen it firsthand for most of my adult life, the results that strong Tory governments bring. 3 elections in which Mrs. Thatcher lost every single time in Wales and never won in Scotland or in Northern Ireland either. But she used her strong government to destroy our manufacturing industry, to close our mining industry, to break up our welfare state, and to blight the futures of young people and communities across Wales. And her successors have simply carried on where she left off. In 2019, without winning a majority of seats in Wales, in Scotland, or in Northern Ireland, we got Boris Johnson. Remember Boris Johnson? A man so adrift from any sense of moral compass that he could appear on television to insist that everyone else follow the rules, while he presided over a Downing Street culture that would have embarrassed the Emperor Nero. Remember Liz Truss? Only there for a few weeks, but long enough to give us her mini-budget, which very nearly crashed our whole economy, which saddled this country with debt, and which is still causing anguish for families in every part of Wales, facing today those higher mortgage bills. Contrast that chaos, that serial dishonesty, with the leadership that Labour now offers. The leadership that Keir will provide as this country's next Prime Minister. In Keir we have somebody, as you will have heard today, who will put decency back at the heart of our public life. Someone who is motivated by duty, by public service, and that burning sense, which I entirely share, that this party's mission is not to tinker at the edges, not to offer some mild amelioration, but to eradicate poverty, to tackle inequality, and to do that with the urgency that those people who rely on this party, the urgency that they look for, that they require, and they quite certainly deserve. Now, conference, it was only a few years since I was at the COP26 climate change conference in Glasgow. There on the wall, throughout the conference halls, was plastered a line from that great poem, The Waste Land by T.S. Eliot. Hurry up, time. Hurry up, please. it's time. A message to the delegates to underline the immense urgency of what we were there to do and the wasteland that would result if we didn't take that action. To take that absolutely decisive action to protect our fragile planet and to combat climate change. But they are also words which every day animate the government that I lead here in Wales. A government that recognises both the trust that the Welsh people placed in us as their government, but also the urgency with which they expect us to respond. The Welsh people put their trust in us as a government because they knew we were ambitious to get to work. Hurry up, please, they told us. It's time to do the things that only a Labour government can do. Because we know that the purpose of the long struggle that led to this party's foundation was to win power so the interests of working people could at last be realised through their government. And so we exist to make that urgent change for the better. Hurry up, please. It's time to make that difference. And that's what we are doing here in Wales, getting on with the hard work of delivering the promises we made to people 2 years ago. Now, our party has a long and distinguished record of radical reform. From Jim Griffiths and the foundation of the welfare state, from Aneurin Bevan and the NHS, to the advent of devolution in 1999. And in Wales, we go on, forming our track record of leading the way, introducing a new curriculum for Wales, reforming local government, banning the physical punishment of children, and nationalising the railways here in Wales. But I believe that our most radical days can and must lie ahead of us. There are so many things that we are determined to achieve over the remaining years of this Senedd term. Strengthening the building blocks of our democracy, making the council tax fairer, aligning our education system with the needs of today's Wales, ensuring that those who don't have a first home aren't forced out of their communities by those in search of a second. Cenhedlaeth, mae Cymru yn wlad groesawgar. They will always be a welcome here in Wales. Ond wrth gwrs, mae dyletswydd arno ni I sicrhau fod bob cymuned yn ein gwlad yn gynaladwy, bod gan bobl gobaith y gallen nhw ddilyn gyfra a chael teulu ble bynnag maen nhw'n byw, a bod yr iaith yn ffynnu ym mhob gŵr o'r wlad. And confronting government here in Wales is also seizing the greatest challenge of our age, the climate crisis. One of the things about living in this astonishingly beautiful country is that we can all see it and feel it when the landscape and the climate are changing. The floods and the extreme temperatures that we have witnessed in just the last few years. And of course, that is only a fraction of what some people in other parts of the world are facing, where entire countries could disappear altogether. We have a profound obligation to do everything we can to avert that catastrophe. Hurry up, please, it's time. More of the same will not do. Last year, we used over half the electricity we used in Wales came from renewable sources. And with a pledge you heard from Keir today, that will be even more ambitious in the rest of this decade. And here in Wales, we've already set out our plans. We will create a publicly owned energy company here in Wales. And that's because the profits that are made from the great renewable resources of our land are only there to be made because of the investment which the people of Wales make in creating the conditions in which that industry can thrive, and it is simply right that those profits are returned to the people from which they came. And we've started, as you've learned, to plant that national forest for Wales, that huge carbon sink that will help us to protect the whole of Wales from the impact of climate change, a symbol of our determination today to protect the interests of future generations tomorrow. Conference, the Labour government in Wales is dedicated to solving our problems through social partnership. And I'm hugely proud that our landmark social partnership bill will become law next week on the floor of our Senedd. That bill puts the long-term alliance between the Labour government and the Labour movement on an even stronger and statutory footing. It is this social partnership approach that has guided our attempts to find a resolution to the public sector pay difficulties which we've experienced not just here in Wales, but here in Wales as well. None of this is easy, Conference. But a Labour government here in Wales, I pledge today, will always stand alongside our friends and colleagues in the trade union movement when their experience of austerity, followed by galloping inflation, drives their members to express that dissatisfaction in the only way they feel they can, by taking strike action. And unlike the Tories, here in Wales, your Labour government will always be there in the room, talking with our trade union colleagues, finding a way to a solution for those challenges that we know in Wales, in that social partnership way, we can only face together. So, Conference, I've set out some of the progressive reforms that we are pursuing here in Wales. But as others have already told you, just think of how much more we could do if a Labour government here could work with a Labour government right across the United Kingdom. A government, as Keir said earlier, that will inspire hope, the hope that government can be a force for good, that things don't have to go on getting worse, more cruel and more coarse with every year that passes. Hope for the young, some of whom have only ever known Tory governments at Westminster. And hope too for families, for those who are facing the biggest cost of living crisis in a generation, struggling each month with the cost of the Tories' economic vandalism. Now, Conference, it will require a huge effort by every single one of us in this room to evict the Tories from office. We know how hard they will cling to privilege and to power because they think it's simply their right to do so. But let us tell them from this conference hall that we can and we will evict them, because here in Wales we've done it before and we're going to do it again. What a fantastic night it was in May of last year when we took back control of councils all over Wales. No more Tory-run councils in any part of Wales. Labour councils, from Denbighshire in the north to Monmouthshire in the south. And we'll be setting out from this conference to achieve exactly the same thing at the next general election. A Tory-free Wales, with no more Tories from Wales at Westminster. Now, conference, I began what I had to say today by recalling my own childhood all those years ago. And at almost exactly the same time, in 1962, Harold Wilson told our national conference that the Labour Party is a moral crusade, or it is nothing. Now, we live in more cynical times, but I say to you that our party's moral purpose is entirely undimmed. We fight for every Labour vote because that is how we gain the right to translate that moral purpose into action. The power to reject inequality, the power to lift our children out of poverty, the power to be that beacon of hope in our perplexed and polluted world, the power to reach out our hands in kindness to strangers. And even at the times of greatest danger, and even when our hearts are weighed down with the intolerable burden of grief, we know our duty, our moral obligation. We know our duty, that moral obligation that this party has to run towards the dangers that blight so many lives, and never ever to run away from them, never to leave to tomorrow the difference that we can make today. So hurry up, please. It's time now to renew again this party's bond with the people of Wales. Time now to put our shoulders again to the wheel of our great moral purpose. And time to elect that next Labour government for which people in Wales have already waited for far too long. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you all very much indeed.